What's up, storytellers? I'm C.R. Rowanson, the Magic Engineer, and it's time to talk about magic. In a previous video, we talked about the 4 universal types of magic systems. If you haven't seen the video or you haven't heard me talk about this or read any of my blog posts on that, the rest of this video may not make a ton of sense. So I really recommend that you go watch that video right now. I'll go ahead and leave a link for you right up here. That said, if you are familiar with it, you have probably started wondering which type of magic should I use? Which one is the best? Well, I want to nip that question right in the bud because there is no best. Really, all it comes down to is the needs of your system and the needs of your story. Rational magic is no better than irrational magic, and hard magic systems are no better than soft magic systems. There are a variety of attributes that these different types of magic have, and they lend themselves well to different types of stories. Right now, we're seeing a rise in popularity of hard rational magic systems. Personally, I think that has to do with Brandon Sanderson himself and the popularity of his systems and his stories. And I can't really blame anybody for that. I'm as much a Sanderson fan as anybody. But those aren't the only types of magic systems that we can put into our stories. And again, I can't stress this enough. No one type is better than the rest. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses and can augment and support different stories in different ways. I actually just talked about this in a presentation I gave at the Pikes Peak Writers Conference. So I'm actually going to pull some content from that presentation and show it to you right now. Top right, we have hard rational, where the majority of the system is displayed or explained, and it has clear rules and patterns. More importantly, for the rational aspect, the readers can use logic and extrapolation to accurately predict parts of the system they haven't seen yet. Shift over to the irrational side. In a hard irrational system, the majority of the system is still displayed or explained, but the reader, either through a lack of rules or information, cannot extrapolate or predict unseen portions of the system. In the bottom left, you have soft irrational, where the majority of the system is hidden or unclear, and the reader cannot extrapolate or predict unseen portions of the magic system. Down in the bottom right, you have soft rational systems, where the majority of the system is hidden or unclear, but the reader can extrapolate and predict portions of the system they haven't seen yet. Each of these aspects of your magic system, hard, soft, rational, irrational, they all have their own attributes and places where they fit best. Let's take a look at those details. You have hard magic when the reader knows or understands the majority of the system, like we said before. It's easier to achieve a hard magic system when a couple of things are in place. If your protagonist character is a magic user that is learning throughout the story or is already extremely knowledgeable on the topic of magic, it's a little easier. It's also easier to manage if the antagonist is an extraordinarily powerful magic user and the protagonist must work around and find a weakness to take him down. Or if the system is simple with a minimum number of rules, limitations, and magical effects, you can get to a high level of hardness very quickly. It's also easier to have a hard magic system if the magic has been a part of the world for a long time. The longer it's been around, the more likely it is that characters have played with it, discovered it, tweaked it, toyed with it, integrated it into their lives. The more they use it and the more they understand, the easier that's going to be for you to turn that into a hard system for your reader. Hard magic allows you as the storyteller to provide satisfactory solutions to plot problems. This is something we've discussed at multiple points, but it's worth reiterating here. Hard magic can also make the setting feel more explored, fully understood, and generally familiar to your reader. The more knowledge and understanding that your characters have about the magic, the reader will assume there's a similar level of knowledge and understanding about the rest of the world, and that can work really well for you. Hard magic can make your characters seem competent, intelligent, educated, and observant, depending on how they're interacting with the hard magic. If they're working to understand all of the details and working with the nuances and the rules to achieve specific outcomes, they're going to look a lot smarter in a number of different ways. Hard magic can also make your reader feel extremely immersed. Like we said before with the setting, they feel that if the magic is this well defined, then the world has to be this well defined. So by understanding the magic, they feel like they understand the world. And that, coupled with how that makes the characters seem, can really make your readers feel incredibly smart. They've memorized the system. They understand all of these things that can be quite esoteric, and that's a really good feeling to have that sense of comprehension for something like this. Hard magic is ideal for a variety of stories. For one, it works well with idea stories, where you have a specific concept or ability or technology that you really want to explore the implications that would have on the world and the characters. You're taking this single piece, this one thing, and really trying to extrapolate and logic out all of the ripples that'll have on the world around it. That's perfect for hard magic. Hard magic also works well in any story that's man versus magical environment. Magical environment specifically because we're talking about a magic system, but generally in man versus environment, magical or non, mankind has to learn and understand what the environment is doing and why it's doing that so that they can adapt and survive, which lends itself to hard magic. And hard magic systems are also terrific for heist stories. That's because a heist is essentially one giant set of problems that need to be solved. That people have to figure out how to get past the guards, how to get the stuff out. It's all of these little details. And if your magic is going to factor in to their solution to achieving this heist, it needs to be a harder system, and it works really well together. Definition of a soft magic system, returning to what we said earlier, is defined by a reader knowing or understanding the minority of a system. These types of magic systems are easier to achieve when the system is incredibly large or they grow bigger over time. That can be bigger over the course of the book or bigger over the series. It's also easier to have a soft magic system if the magic is brand new to the world or long forgotten. Because in those cases, there's going to be very few characters that either know about it or understand it. The lower the level of knowledge and understanding in the world itself, the easier it is to make it a soft magic system for your reader. Soft magic is also great when your magic is more for flavor in your story than it is for problem solving. You can be using this to drive emphasis on character moments or turning points in the plot. Any situation where you're using the magic more to set the stage and build up a theme or a tone than have it be an actual mechanical tool that your characters are wielding, that lends itself more to a softer magic system. Soft magic systems are also easier to achieve if your protagonist is not a magic user, is new to the setting, or has zero interest in the magic whatsoever. Your readers are going to be in your protagonist's head, regardless of the point of view you're writing in. That's going to be the closest connection your readers have to the story and to the world. So if thoughts and understanding of magic aren't running around in the protagonist's head, they aren't going to be showing up for the reader, making it much easier to shroud the rest of the magic system and keep it kind of hidden and mysterious. Soft magic systems allow you as the storyteller to figure things out as you go, and it actually provides more opportunities for you to fill plot holes. Think about it for a second. If you have a 100% hard magic system, which I'm not sure is actually possible, but let's say you do, absolutely everything has been explained, which means if there are any contradictions in that explanation, you've got nowhere to go. If you leave the magic soft and contradictions show up, you can then fill in the gaps with additional information, playing it off more as like, oh, well, this just wasn't known yet. And that ties in really well with some other stuff you can do. If you do find gaps and errors in your hard magic system, you can intentionally Make it softer for a moment, implying, oh, there are things they didn't know, and then harden it up again to fix those gaps. You do need to be careful so that it doesn't feel too contrived, but that is something that it allows you to do with your story and your magic. Soft magic systems can make your setting feel wild, unexplored, wondrous, and mysterious. Just think about it. We've talked about how the magic is almost a direct reflection of the understanding of the environment, right? If the magic is well understood, that implies people understand the environment well. The opposite is true as well. If they don't understand the magic, that implies that there are pieces of the world that they don't understand, making it all seem a little strange and maybe dangerous. Soft magic systems can do a number of things for your characters, but they often make the characters seem small, outmatched, or foreign in the setting, which isn't a bad thing. You can really use that to build some good underdog type scenarios where the character is way in over their head but manages to come out on top anyway. Soft magic systems, when employed well, can make your reader feel eager and thirsty to learn more. They've gotten a little bit of taste of this mystery and this cool thing, and they want to understand how it works. You can also use it to make your reader feel like an outsider to the setting. Similar to just the understanding of the world, the less they understand about the world, the more foreign it's going to feel, which can also lead to feelings of uncertainty, or, like we mentioned with Stargate, like they're only seeing a tiny piece of a much larger whole. Those are all really valuable emotions to evoke depending on what you're trying to do with your story. Soft magic systems can be ideal for character or relationship stories because by their nature, they are undefined and soft and kind of ebb and flow. They can be used with tremendous effect to emphasize these important character or relationship moments to really augment and improve your story. Soft magic is also terrific for horror stories. We fear what we don't know. Throw in a bunch of cool stuff that's scary and powerful, but we know nothing about, and you are primed for some awesome horror. Last, soft magic systems can also work really well for any kind of new world or portal fantasy type stories. In fact, to a certain extent, you're almost going to have to do that because your character and your reader will be new to the setting. It's going to start soft, and you can either leave it that way or progress into a hard system by the end of your story. Rational magic is defined as being based on or in accordance with reason or logic. That means that your reader can extrapolate and predict pieces of the system without seeing them first. Rational magic systems are easier to achieve when the system has consistent themes and internal patterns. They don't actually have to be logical patterns. Humans are super good at pattern building. Even if they're building patterns that aren't really there, that doesn't matter. If you can make it so that we see a pattern, it will feel rational even if it's not true. Just look at the various forms of science that we've had in the past. Humors, alchemy, all of that kind of stuff had a pattern that humans constructed even though it wasn't true. So building those consistent themes and internal patterns is fantastic for a rational magic system. It's also easier to make them if you go in with some concrete rules and limitations. And as we've talked about before, having a bit of nuance to those will only help you. Getting stuff defined to very specific situations makes it easier to apply that same information in different ways. Lastly, you're going to have an easier time building a rational magic system into your story if your characters are actively searching for loopholes, hacks, and tricks. If they take a look at the magic and say, yeah, I know it can do this, but that's not enough. I want to see how far I can take this and what's the most I can get out of this. Then your characters will actively be engaged in exploring those minute details and finding the underlying structure for the magic. That's a great way to go. Having a rational magic system allows you, as the storyteller, to make your magic feel scientific. You can use it for interesting twists and even as a cornerstone for your building because you're tying in this logical growth and ripple effect that lets you build off of these tiny pieces much further than if you were doing an irrational system. Rational magic systems can be used to make your setting feel more real. And by real, I mean not alien, making it feel comprehensible, understandable. And that can tie directly into whether it's hard or soft and yada yada. But the point is here, you're really making it so that the setting feels like it has underlying structures or has no underlying structures. If you're building something where physics and base components of reality aren't consistent, that's not going to be rational in pretty much any sense of the word. If you do the opposite, there's all sorts of stuff you can do with it. We wouldn't have been able to make airplanes if our world wasn't rational. For your characters, rational magic systems can make them seem cerebral and clever. Clever is a little different than smart. Smart is the ability to absorb and remember the information. Clever is making use of it. If you're familiar with TV tropes, guile characters are what we're talking about here. They're ones who look at what has been provided to them and find tricksy ways to piece it together and get the outcome that they want. That works fantastic with a rational magic system. In fact, it's hard to do with an irrational system. Rational magic systems can make your reader feel clever right alongside the character because the character's coming up with these clever twists and the reader's able to follow it. That imparts some of the sense of cleverness to the reader themselves. It can also give them a strong connection to the setting. And most importantly, this is something that should not be overlooked. If you do it right, it can leave them excited to see if any predictions that they have made are right. And if they've spent some time daydreaming and think, well, what if X can happen? They said Y can happen. What if X can happen? And then it does. That is so satisfying. Rational magic systems are ideal for science fiction stories. We mentioned just a minute ago that rational magic can make your magic feel scientific, like technology. In fact, that's one of the best ways to make a technological system is through a rational magic system. That is perfect for a science fiction type setting. Rational magic is also great for mysteries because even if we don't know everything that can happen, we do need to understand what did happen, and it needs to be logical enough that in theory, the reader is able to piece it together before it's shown to them. That's a really important part of mysteries, at least in my opinion, is that I can piece it together with the information that is provided. I can't do that if it's not rational. Rational magic is also great for the various punk genres or speculative fiction in general. Anytime you're looking at what if, and then you're running with that idea, you're extrapolating, you're branching out, that is a perfect environment and headspace to be in when integrating or building rational magic. Irrational magic is defined by a lack of reason or logic chains. Your readers only know something is true when they see that it's true. And even then, they only know it as they see it. They can't assume that it works any other way. Irrational magic systems are easier to achieve when your magic users and the magical effects are distinct and disparate and wildly varied. It also works well if your magic is mostly for atmosphere, because you don't need to worry about the connections. You're just trying to evoke emotions or a general sense of the situation that doesn't need an underlying pattern to it. Irrational magic systems are also easier to achieve if your characters never try to use the magic in new ways. The example I have for that is D&D, where you have the rules for the spells, and the game system is structured so that you can't really branch out past that. The spell does what it does, and that's really all you get to do without any homebrew or at-the-table agreements. Irrational magic systems also work well when your protagonist isn't a magic user, because if they're not using the magic, they don't need to worry about the patterns. This isn't always true, but this is often true. Irrational systems allow you as the storyteller a massive amount of flexibility in the content of the magic system. You can build in a sense of randomness. It allows you to make every single piece feel unique. It allows you to essentially pack in everything in the kitchen sink into a single magic system because you don't need to worry about it being connected. Irrational magic systems can make the setting feel uncharted, inconsistent, or alien. And again, when I'm talking about alien, I'm talking more about incomprehensible, Lovecraftian in a way. It's so bizarre we can't really wrap our heads around it. Oh man, irrational systems are so good for that. Irrational systems can also make your characters seem more emotionally driven and more unique. Because there's no connections, that's going to make them seem like they're their own island of magic and ability. Superhero settings are terrific for this. All of the superheroes feel very distinct because there's no rational connection between them. They're just powerful in different ways. And for the emotionally driven aspect, if they're not having to think around these quirks and stuff, it's going to be driven more by how they're feeling and what it is they're trying to do and how strongly they want to do it. At least that's the tendency. Irrational magic systems can make the reader feel uncertain of what can happen and a bit in the dark, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You may want exactly that. At the same time, it can make them feel strongly attached to their favorite pieces of the system. Just think about it. We all have our favorite superheroes, and in D&D, every player and even every character is going to have specific spells that they prefer because of how they approach problems and how they view the world. And irrational magic is great for finding those little niches where your characters and your readers want to sit. In terms of story types, irrational magic systems work great for character and relationship stories. We've kind of talked about the connection to the emotionally driven aspect. They're also fantastic for Lovecraftian settings and horror stories, where you're wanting the characters and the readers way out of their depth. They're in a place that they don't understand what's happening, and there's no way for them to understand what's happening. Man, irrational magic systems are the best at this. So by now, it should be pretty clear that each of these components really lends itself to specific scenarios and specific stories. So depending on your story, you might need a very specific type of magic system. All right, that was a lot of information, but at this point you should have a pretty good idea of the strengths and weaknesses of the different types of magic systems and how they can augment different types of stories. So once again, for one final time, I will reiterate that no type of magic is better than the other. It needs to be well implemented and it needs to serve the story, but none are inherently better. Now I have a question for you. I want to know what type of magic system will best suit the current story or game you're working on right now. So please leave a comment below and let me know. I love hearing how people use this kind of information. Also, please like and subscribe, because if you do that on your own, I won't have to send the electronic gremlins to do it for you, because none of us want that. They make a huge mess. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome.